A $140 credit card payment can be the reason a $5,000 balance survives for more than a decade. At 21 to 25% APR, roughly 90 to 105 of that first payment can disappear into interest before your balance really moves. So you can be paying on time, avoiding late fees, protecting your credit score, and still be renting the same debt month after month. By the end, you will know why the minimum payment feels safe, why it moves so slowly in 2026, and what changes when you turn it into a fixed payoff plan. Start with Marcus. He is 38, lives outside Dallas, has a car payment, 2 kids, a 401k he barely checks, and 1 card with a balance just under $5,000. Nothing dramatic happened. It was tires, a dental bill, groceries during a tight month, 1 hotel weekend, and a few "we'll catch up next paycheck" purchases that did not get caught up. His statement says the minimum due is $140, and $140 feels manageable. It is not fun, but it does not look like an emergency. He pays it. The app says thank you. The account says current, no collector calls. It feels like progress. Then the next statement arrives, and the balance is still ugly. This is where credit cards are psychologically brilliant in the worst possible way. They give you a payment small enough to keep you calm, but not always big enough to get you free. The minimum payment is designed to keep the account in good standing. That matters. Missing payments is expensive and damaging, but current and escaping are not the same thing. In 2026, this matters because credit card rates are not living in some cute little 12% world. Federal Reserve data showed the average APR on card accounts that accrue interest at 21.52% in Q1 2026. All current card accounts averaged about 21.00%. New card offers were often higher, with LendingTree data showing an average new offer around 23.79%. Your exact rate depends on your card, credit profile, issuer, and agreement, but the neighborhood is expensive. APR stands for annual percentage rate. The everyday version is simple. It is the rent you pay to keep borrowing the bank's money. Take a $5,000 balance at about 21.5% APR. Divide that annual rate into monthly interest, and you are around 1.8% per month before issuer details. In the first month, that's roughly $90 of interest. So if the payment is $140, about $90 can go to interest, and only about $50 is really pushing the balance down.
That is the part the payment app does not make emotionally obvious. It shows one payment. Your debt sees 2 buckets. Bucket 1 is interest. Bucket 2 is principal, which is the actual balance. Interest eats first. Principal gets the leftovers. So you pay $140, and the balance does not drop by $140. It drops by whatever is left after interest. If there are new purchases, fees, or cash advance charges, it can move even less. This is why people say, "I swear I am paying this thing and it is not going anywhere." They are not imagining it. The math is slow when the payment is small relative to the APR. Now, here's the part that makes the minimum especially sneaky. On many cards, the minimum is connected to the balance. It might be a percentage of what you owe, often in the rough range of 2% to 4%, sometimes with interest and fees included, sometimes with a fixed floor like $25 or $35. The exact formula depends on the issuer, but the behavior can be similar. As your balance falls, your required minimum can fall too. That sounds friendly. Lower bill, less stress, nice little gift from the app. Except if your goal is to kill the debt, a falling payment can slow the whole thing down. It's like a race where every time you get closer to the finish line, someone quietly moves the finish line farther away. If Marcus keeps paying whatever the app asks, the payment may start around $140, then later become $120, then $95, then $70, and each lower payment attacks less principal. The bill gets easier, the timeline gets lazier. This is the difference between a declining minimum and a fixed payment. A declining minimum asks, what is the least you can pay this month without getting in trouble? A fixed payment asks, how fast do you want this balance gone? If Marcus pays $140 as a fixed payment and stops adding new charges, the payment does not shrink when the balance shrinks. Month 1 still feels slow because interest is heavy, but later when the balance is lower, that same $140 has more room to attack principal. The payment becomes stronger over time. Now add even $50. Not magic, just $50. At high APR, extra principal is powerful because it does not only reduce this month's balance, it reduces the balance that future interest gets to feed on. Add $100 and the timeline can compress again. This is why the better question is not, can I afford the minimum? Sometimes the honest answer is yes.
The better question is, if I pay this amount, what month does the balance die? Because credit card debt does not usually feel like one big decision. It feels like several small decisions that got promoted to a permanent bill. Groceries, a delivery order that got expensive after fees, a $700 car repair, a medical copay, a birthday, a month where everything hit at once. The problem is not that every swipe was stupid. Some of them were life. The problem is that the payoff plan often does not match the reason the debt exists. If it was a one-time emergency, the job is to build a temporary bridge and tear the bridge down fast. If it is a monthly budget gap, then a payoff plan alone will fail because the card keeps becoming the backup paycheck. If it is lifestyle overflow, something has to become less convenient, less upgraded, or less frequent. Nobody wants to hear that the answer to a 24% APR card is cook more. The useful version is not never enjoy anything. The useful version is find repeat expenses that can be converted into principal. The first extra $50 might come from one less delivery order each week, 2 grocery swaps from brand to generic, or pausing one streaming bundle you forgot had become $22. The goal is not to shame the latte. The goal is to locate cash flow that is currently invisible. Now, zoom out. Credit card balances are large because life is expensive and credit is marketed as flexibility. Research cited average credit card balances above $6,000 in 2025, with Gen X balances around $9,684. The Federal Reserve reported credit card loan delinquency at commercial banks at 2.92% in Q1 2026, and the New York Fed reported 4.8% of outstanding debt in some stage of delinquency. The balanced read is this: plenty of people are still paying, but paying does not automatically mean winning. So, how do you turn the payment from a maintenance fee into an exit plan? First, stop treating the minimum as the plan. Treat it as the floor. The minimum is what keeps the account current. Your payoff payment is a separate number. Write down 4 things: the balance, the APR, the minimum payment, and whether you are still putting new purchases on that card. If you do not know the APR, that is the first red flag. The APR is the price tag on the debt. Second, freeze the target. If your minimum is $140 today, consider making $140 your fixed payment instead of letting it fall to $120 later. If you can safely do $190, make that the fixed payment. If you can do $240 for 3 months because overtime is available, do that and reassess. Fixed does not mean forever. It means intentional. Third, build a tiny buffer so the card does not become the emergency fund again. Some people say every extra dollar should go to the card because the APR is high. Mathematically, that is often true. Behaviorally, if you have 0 cash cushion, the next flat tire goes right back on the card. For many households, a small starter buffer, even $500 to $1,000, can protect the payoff plan from one normal inconvenience. Fourth, pick your payoff order. The avalanche method attacks the highest APR first and usually saves the most interest. The snowball method attacks the smallest balance first for motivation. Use the method you will actually follow, because the perfect method you abandon in 3 weeks is just a pretty spreadsheet. Fifth, consider a balance transfer only if the fee and behavior make sense. Many have a 3 to 5% transfer fee, so on a $5,000 balance, a 3% fee is $150. That can be worth it if the 0% window helps you really pay the balance down. It is not worth it if it simply gives you a clean card to fill up again. Sixth, call before things break. If you are already slipping, ask the issuer about hardship options before you miss multiple payments. Consider a reputable nonprofit credit counseling agency if the payments already feel unmanageable. And do not raid a 401k, skip an employer match, or touch tax-advantaged money without understanding the trade-offs. The best plan is usually boring and mechanical. No new charges on the payoff card, a fixed payment above the minimum, a small buffer against the next emergency, a list of specific spending changes that fund the extra payment, and a calendar month where the balance is supposed to hit zero. The calendar matters. Without a date, the balance becomes atmospheric. It is just around, like humidity. With a date, the balance becomes a project. Here's the simple version Marcus could use. He has the $5,000 balance and $140 minimum. Instead of letting the app steer forever, he tests 3 numbers in a payoff calculator: the declining minimum, $140 fixed, and $190 or $240 fixed. That shows him the actual trade-off between comfort today and interest tomorrow. Then he chooses where the extra comes from, not fantasy money. Delivery reduced from twice a week to once. One subscription paused. Grocery swaps on repeat items, or a tax refund split between cash buffer and principal. And if the balance came from a recurring shortfall, he faces that directly. If every month is short by $300, paying an extra $100 on the card while adding $300 in new charges is just moving furniture around in a burning room. The first job is to stop the new charges. The second job is to attack the old balance. This is where minimum payment becomes a language problem. It sounds like a recommendation. It is not. It is a boundary. It means pay at least this much to avoid worse consequences. It does not mean pay this if you want a good outcome. Your card issuer is not your financial coach. The issuer gives you disclosures, a minimum, and sometimes a payoff warning because rules require it. But the business model still works fine if you carry a balance and pay interest for a long time. That does not make you powerless. It means you need your own number. So here's the assignment. Pull up one card statement, not all your accounts, not your entire financial identity, not a guilt ceremony. One statement. Find the balance, find the APR, find the minimum. Then use a payoff calculator and enter 3 payments: the minimum, today's minimum as a fixed payment, and today's minimum plus $50 or $100. Look at the payoff month and total interest. That screen is the real bill, because the monthly payment is only what you feel today. The payoff date is what your future self feels. If the numbers are worse than expected, good. Not emotionally good, obviously, but useful good. You cannot fight a timeline you have never seen. And once you see it, the minimum loses some of its power. It stops looking like the official answer. It starts looking like the lowest setting. That is the whole reframe. Do not ask, can I afford the minimum? Ask, what month does this balance die? If the answer is too far away, do not panic and do not pretend. Change the payment, change the spending that funds the payment, or get help before the account starts making decisions for you. The $140 payment is not bad by itself. Paying on time matters, staying current matters. But if $140 is only keeping the balance alive, then it's not a payoff plan. It's a waiting room. And the goal is not to sit politely in the waiting room for the next 18 years. The goal is to walk out.